Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. If you happen to be listening to this episode prior to Thursday, the 30th of November 2023, there's still time for you to join the free online workshop where I'll be sharing with you 3 steps to vocal confidence. This is an interactive workshop where I guide you through the practices for each of the steps so that you immediately experience shifts that you can then implement into your life. If you feel called to join, if you want to find out more about what this workshop can do for you, check the link in the show notes and hopefully I'll see you there. My guest on this week's episode is Atousa Raissyan. She's a recognized shaman, transformational heart-centered healer, spiritual guide and motivational speaker. She is also a best-selling author, poet, and digital artist. Her passion is to help people light up by guiding them to reprogram their fear-based living to a more heart-centered, peaceful life. Her extensive experience comes from years of transforming the life of her clients to tap into their truth, heart, and experience their desired life, and then in turn change the lives of those around them. During our conversation, Atousa also shares about her journey and the awakening the pandemic offered society. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
It is a very good question. It used to be that I had to actually sit in meditation and it would be certain times. And now I feel it's really as soon as I get up in the morning, I have it, no matter what's going on outside in the world or with me, I'm in that state.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Atousa, before we go on, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about who you are, your story, and what got you to the place and the space you are now, doing the work that you're doing now.
I started as an engineer, but even going back to that is that I come from Iran, and when I was around 2 years old, my parents got a divorce, and the divorce was really a contentious divorce, one of those that like really lasted through my adulthood. And there's a whole story of that. I mean, that by itself could be a whole entire book. But in Iran, during when I was about probably 3rd or 4th grade, that's when the revolution started happening. And shortly after that, it was the war. And then we migrated to US. And I think as a child, it felt like, now looking back at it, I feel like I was born pretty much with like PTSD. Like I had so much anxiety and fears about everything around me, and like the situations did not help. And then when we came here, it's like my life had been so much change up until like 11 years old, 12 years old, that I decided, okay, no, you want to control at that point. So my way to control my life was that, okay, I need money, I need a job. And so what do? I need to make sure I finish school as fast as I can and get out there and start a career. So at 11, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go as fast as I can, which meant, when I got into high school, I started taking night classes, summer school, whatever I could. At that point, I don't know even if they let you right now or not, but at that point, for whatever reason, I could. And so I got my diploma at, I think it was around 15, 16 when I got my diploma. And then I went into college and I decided to study engineering because that was the fastest way I knew that I can get out and make money. And I got my bachelor's in electrical engineering at 19 and I started working. But the part of the story that I didn't mention is that throughout all that time, even as a kid, I was so drawn into the healing practices, healing arts, and energy and all that stuff. So, and as I'm going through all that, somehow that is coming along with me, that knowledge and looking into it. And, I was successful as an electrical engineer. I joined my sister in her company. And we made that into a success. We sold the company. I made a lot of money. And then I was like, okay, what do I do now? And at that point, I got my certifications, actually master healer certification. And still, I was not in a place, the fear, anxiety, control was still there. And I'm releasing things, but not at a pace to sort of like get into this kind of business. And they started another company. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come join you guys again. And part of that time, I got married. And then everything is sort of like universe brought everything to a halt. My ex was abusive, just like my dad. They say you marry your dad. So similar in some ways and different in other ways. And the company did not do so well. And also all my investments, everything I had invested into stuff. The investments, none of my investments paid out. And I lost all my money. All the money I made, I lost and then some. So here I am, I'm getting separated. I was separated. I didn't have the money and I couldn't do the work suddenly that I had done for so many years. I would sit in front of the computer and I just cry because I could not physically, mentally, emotionally, like the words I could not comprehend, read. So I paused a little bit of that to see what I could do. And I couldn't go back to my job. After a while, they said, okay, you either got to come back to work. We can't keep paying you. So what's it going to be? I'm like, no, I can't. I mean, like, I literally cannot do the work. I don't it's crazy, but I can't do the work. And people don't understand it. Like, well, how was it like? I'm like, it was like a physical, mental, emotional. My job was to write documents. My job was to write specifications. In order to do that, I need to understand and formulate and put it on paper. And none of that was working. It was like as if you go and, start a new job that you've never studied, never done anything. And they said, do the job. You're like, well, I can't. And that's how it was. And I started sending resumes for whatever I could. But during that process, I started drawing. I started reading Rumi poems again, and they were starting to make sense to me in a different way. And the art actually became a way that I was connecting to sort of like that internal voice, internal guidance system, my own energy, and everything was just like flowing out. And somebody said, okay, why don't you just start selling your artwork? I'm like, okay. I had no art degree, nothing, and started that. And then another person said, well, you've been helping us, friends and families, like you've been helping friends and family with like this energy work and other stuff. So why don't you put that as a practice? I'm like, okay, what do I got to lose? And as soon as I started that, then it just started rolling, and it is what it is today. And during that process, I remember looking back at, I was meditating And it just suddenly everything came into picture. I remembered as like being very, very young and not even in elementary school at that point, and wanting to be a healer. It's like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. And that everything in my life sort of like lined up in order for me to have these tools that, I'm going to use. What kind of a healer would I be if I come and I have no clue? I haven't healed myself. I don't have any tools. So you got to do the work. So this was my job training sort of to do what I do today now.
The thing that came to my mind as you were speaking is just this idea of healing that is so needed on so many levels, and especially in the world where we are now. And you're three years on from the pandemic experience that we all had, and yet what comes to me and when I'm thinking about it is like, how is everyone really doing? How are we really? Because we've kind of almost like put that thing to one side and just gone on with life, and clearly the world is completely different, and it's almost like living in an abusive situation, where people are abusive and then they just kind of like get on and no one apologizes or acknowledges that something has happened and discusses it, and yet there's this underlying thought that something went on but no one's really addressing it, and there's this hope or this expectation almost that if we just continue on going forward, then there'll be enough distance between the event that happened and where we are now, and we'll just get over it, we'll forget about that, and we won't say sorry, we won't deal with how that affected us. Do you have thoughts on that? Are you seeing things? Is it showing up in your work, a response to that, and how are you addressing that if it is?
Pandemic actually I think it was great because it brought a lot of people, they could not run away from themselves anymore. So that was the time that everybody sort of was a mandatory universe saying, you're going to go inside and take a look at what you're doing, at your relationships, at your work, at your job, at your everything. And I think a lot of people, majority of the people actually did that. There were a lot of marriages that either came to an end or relationships that came to an end or got stronger. There were a lot of family situations that were stressful and toxic in the way that, everybody was so involved in their jobs and pushing each other to do better and all that stuff, that the parents started actually dealing with their kids a little bit differently as well. I see a lot of parents that before they were all about grades and do this and do that, and now they're like, dude, I just want you to be happy now. I want my kid to be happy. So those are all great changes. And even jobs, people started coming out of their toxic jobs, that it was all about maybe money or things that they didn't want to do or anything that didn't align with them. So they either started their own businesses, they changed jobs, whatever it was. And also I see a lot of people now demand that from their sort of managers, higher ups, that no, I'm not gonna put myself through this. So I'm not going to be working these many hours, or I'm not going to be doing this. So they're speaking up for themselves. Those are all great things that happen. Putting that aside, now you mentioned the world. The main reason we are in this situation is people being afraid of going inside. Even like you said, they might go to a certain place and they stop. They're like, okay, I don't want to go any deeper. And part of that reason is that a part of you knows if you fully go in, you're going to let go of pretty much everything. This so-called reality that you've built that keeps you sort of in your mind safe and secure, which is all house of cards anyway. It's like really false security. There's a part of you knows that if you step one more foot, that is all going to come crumbling down. And so that fear is like keeps them there. Sort of, they'll play around, and when they're ready, everybody's going to take that step. I think at some point, some people do it earlier, some people do it later in life. When they're 70, maybe even 80 years old, it doesn't matter when you do it. It's not about the timing of it. We're all on this journey, and we're all being guided pretty much to go deeper inside and find that place where, call it whatever, call it heart-centered, call it divine, call it higher consciousness, whatever you want. There is a part of you inside that everybody knows. Everybody's connected to it somehow. And we are here to sort of bring that into our human existence and align those two. Because you cannot, everybody talks about ego bad. No, ego is not bad. You just need to align. Ego is pretty much yourself, is the human experience that you came in this lifetime. Once you align that with that higher consciousness, divine heart, whatever you want to call it, that's a beautiful dance now that you can do in your life and enjoy and be open and not be so connected into this physical sort of reality that we've created.
Bringing it back to yourself, what did doing the work look like for you? What was it? What was your journey? What were the things that you encountered? What were the things that almost informed the way that you now share your own healing and your own transformation? You can see, you almost have to walk yourself through it. And I'm saying you because I'm saying me. No, and I said before, I'm writing the book of my life, really. But what I'm realizing is it's ultimately the methodology that I use for my coaching is basically the methodology I used for my life to get myself together. So it was just, I'm writing the story of basically being coached as part of where I am now, because that's all of the things that it brought together. And it's looking at all of the aspects, all of the things that I went through, the coping mechanisms that I used to use, the way that I was shut down, the areas that I shied away from, and then the awakenings that I had and what that looked like, and things that I needed to shift. Looking over them again is very enlightening to see that, wow, I did really do the work, and still am doing the work, because it's by no means a closed book. What were the things that you saw that you went through that were unique to you, that maybe you couldn't even if you went and were trained by someone else, they could never give you that because you had an individual experience of something?
As you know, I have everything in the book as well, that, all that processes. And like I said, it was my training ground. So I developed all these tools and techniques, as you're saying, that I help my clients to release their past traumas. And I think for everybody, and that's why I did the book mainly, was to say, these are the steps. These are the steps I took. And these are the steps I use for my clients. And I know these steps work. And part of coming up with those steps too was that, I said earlier, I was always drawn to this. And I looked at these teachers, gurus, masters, whatever you want to call them, like, well, how are they doing it? They can do that because they didn't have trauma, or, they don't have families, they don't have this, they don't have a job, they don't live in the real life. So that's the way I would like, how is that possible to live like that? And then when I started down this path, I actually got those tools and techniques, and even like I'm a shaman, even those shamanic techniques, even before I work with the shaman, a lot of those things, I received it on my own. I was doing it for myself. And then, sort of like every time my teacher would say, well, I want you to practice, I'm doing that already. But it was good that I got a little bit deeper into it. So everybody, that's all to say, once you start down this path, everything's going to come to you. You're going to have everything you need. You're going to have the teachings, whatever it is. And for me, but the thing is that you cannot be running away from yourself. Because to answer the question, what did it look like? There were a lot of times that it was as if I'm in total darkness. It feels bad physically, emotionally, mentally. It was feeling bad. And yet, I had to get up. Yet I had a son to take care of. But I went through it. There was a lot of times I would go to bed and not want to wake up in the morning. And I would say, please just let this be the last night. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it lasted days, sometimes it's weeks. And there were times it was like for a good several months that I was in a particular spot. But I also knew this is where I need to be because, the deeper you go, sort of those roots become stronger. So it's going to take a little bit of shaking in order to bring it out. And for anybody that's on the journey, go through it. Don't be afraid of those times, because as soon as we've got into this habit that as soon as sadness comes, as soon as fear comes, everybody wants to run away. Oh no, I got to be happy all the time. Oh my God, no, I got to be 100% all the time. It's not like that. Take time to sit with those places, those darkness, whatever you want to call it, because that's the only way you're going to go through it. Don't let your fear of being sad, being afraid, being whatever, get you to stop, because that is part of the process. You've got to go through it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. Like your answer to the question is the answer to the questions. There's nothing wrong or right. One thing I wanted to ask is what was the most surprising thing to you
about my journey?
Yeah. Like sometimes we always talk about the darkest things, but it's like what came up that you're like, I never expected that, or I never knew that about myself?
Honestly, for me, it wasn't anything surprising. I would say nothing's been surprising. The biggest thing for me, the biggest aha moment was that part that I say everything aligned. That was like one of the biggest things that really made me trust the process and trust the universe, God, whatever you want to label it. Trust that and trust myself. That alignment, that everything came together, that was like one of the biggest, one of the most important things that happened. And beyond that, nothing else. I mean, like, it's just right now, it's like, oh, this is good. This feels good. Yeah. Even if it's not, it's not something like when something comes up, be it fear, be it sadness, whatever comes up, now it's easy for me. Like, it's not dark anymore. It's not heavy anymore. I can, nobody would even notice that I'm going through anything. Because it's like, ooh, juicy. This is a gift. Let me go in there and see. What am I releasing this time? What tools are you giving me? This is going to be something juicy that I can use for my clients.
Yeah. Do you know, the reason I'm laughing is as you were saying that, it was literally, that was what was running through my head. When you have these challenges and like you say, you're going through it, there comes a point where you're like, okay, it's not necessarily the most comfortable situation that I'm in right now, but then you realize, having gone through so many iterations and so many little dark corners, that you realize that on the other side of it is like a new awareness and a transformation of yourself, a deeper understanding, more tools to share, just more. So even though it doesn't feel great, then there's less desire to run, because you're like, okay, we need to kind of climb under the brambles a little bit to get to the other side where we see that there's going to be something else. So as you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, I understand that part as well. And dealing with any hurts, I think of an instance recently where I was deeply disappointed. It wasn't as hard as it could have been before, because one, I knew it was going to happen. There was an element of me trying to like kind of paper over something that was just someone's bad behavior. Then it was for me to kind of sit with what I was feeling and the disappointment and everything, but like truncate it and deal with it in a really short period of time and journal through it. It wasn't as painful as I thought as it would have been before, when I've been like, how dare they hurt me like this? You know, I'm a good person. It was like, one, I abandoned myself because I knew way before all of this that this is the way it was going to go, so I need to deal with that. But also, let me just see how, as I write every now and again, if I have like a thing come up, like I'm going to write through it, you know, I'm just going to let me sit and just like scribble it out in the journal and get to the other side. And I fasted through it as well, and it just was like 3 days of just getting through it on the other side and like, okay, that's fine. I woke up one morning and went, okay, we're done, right? Okay, we're going to move on. And then waking up on that morning, it was a Friday, waking up and going, okay, we're done with that now. But then also witnessing that going, oh, that was easy. You know, like having all these different perspective conversations with myself about the whole thing. And then also just allowing them to be in the world and not being my world and not being upset by it. And, you know, just don't abandon yourself next time, Carol, when you get, and knowing that you're just going to have to go through a situation with somebody, but then also not beating myself up, because there was a lesson learned. There was a lesson learned for me abandoning myself or not listening to myself at that moment that was very quickly reconciled. Whereas years before, it would have been like, how dare they? And, you know, going around and telling everybody about how terrible things are. And the more you do it, the process quickens almost, and you can move through it and you welcome the journey. And like you said, the juiciness, because ultimately I feel like I gained something. And again, also I can then pass that on when I like have to work with anyone who's like going through something, like, well, here's a process that you could try that may get you through on the other side, you know, that you'll be able to handle the disappointment, the hurts. And also maybe you can look at the way that you ignored the signs, because we always have an idea that things are going to go a certain way, either subtly or more heavily, but then maybe go back in time a little bit and start to remember that you did have signs and you just weren't aware of them. You start to get to know what your markers are and your indications are, so that the next time you feel that, you're like, oh, okay, what is it that I'm being shown? What is it that I need to be aware of? I'm all for the, you know, going through the things and allowing the things to happen. And it's as time goes on, you welcome these icky bits, because you know that on the other side of it is going to be something new. I'm enamored by the art around you, and I just wanted to ask you more about your art and your expression on that level.
My art it's been interesting too. So again, that was one of the things when I was little. I really loved art and I wanted to be an artist. But I was so afraid of art. For one thing is that everybody would tell you, like, well, art is something you can't make money off of, and it's something you do for yourself, and it's not unless you become really great, this great artist. And also, it was, you know, I sort of at times felt like that Little Prince story where whatever I did, it was like, well, there was something wrong with it. Somebody said, like, that's not the way it's supposed to be, or why don't you draw this, or why don't you draw that? And this is just me. It's not even in school. So very early on, I just stopped. I stopped art altogether. Like, I wasn't going to touch it. And then, you know, I took one, it was like in high school or something. I remember I had art as part of the curriculum, which was great. But again, you know, everything I did wasn't really, I was a C student in art. Maybe sometimes a B, but mostly C. And at one point, you know, during this is after college and everything, I took one charcoal class. And of course, again, you know, all the voices were there and, you know, put it aside. But then this time when I picked it up after that process, and I went just in my closet and took out, you know, papers and charcoals and pastels and acrylics and canvas, all of that came out. And my approach wasn't that I wanted to create art for anybody, because before I was creating it more to get approval, to say, hey, I'm a good artist, even as a kid. And when I wasn't getting that, I'm like, okay, I'm a terrible artist. I'm not going to do it. This time was more of the expression of what was inside coming out, and I did not care. And even when I did my, when a friend said, your stuff's good, put it out online, I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, you had no art experience whatsoever. And here you are, you're putting your art out into the world for everybody to see. And I started doing exhibitions too, like very early on in the process. But they are, and I switched. So now I do digital art. I don't do regular, I don't draw or paint, because the digital art sort of like, I can express myself better through that, because it brings, like, I take layers of pictures and colors and, different things, and I layer them on top, and I use different apps. Some of it is Photoshop, but also some different apps. And I layered it, and I transform it and change it. And everybody that connects with the piece, they say it has an energy. Even when they take it into their home, they're like, somehow I feel like it's talking to me, it's healing me. I don't know. I can't tell you what it is. And it does have an energy, it does have a healing process. And it's certainly, each one of them has an inspirational message, and they're very colorful. And people have said, again, early on, they used to say, were you on acid, or were you taking something, mushrooms or anything when you did this? It's like, no, nothing. And a lot of times people say, when they have taken mushrooms or when they've meditated, some of these visuals is what they've seen as well. So, and now a lot of them also have a augmented reality portion, which means it comes to life. So when you there's a free app, and when you point it to the artwork, it has a music and movement. And that was always part of what I wanted for my art. But early on, the tools weren't there, but somehow the tools became available magically, and now I can create that as well.
And as you were speaking, I actually wrote down AI, because I want to ask you about that. So you're working with technology, you're working with augmented reality. So how far are you going to go with that?
I'm not at this point. Every time, it's funny, I've touched AI for anything. Even like people have been able to tell AI to do portraits. My portraits with AI, they look nothing like me, and it's just been amazing. AI has not worked for me at all, just even for fun, for me to see it. And I think part of that is that AI is great if you want to say, go draw me this, but it has no energy in it. The energy comes from me, from the artist. It's like a music. You can tell AI to write something, write even a song, but when it's not the energy, it's what you are creating. Is that, again, divine and the human coming together in that creation that gives it that energy, that does something for the person that's listening to that piece of music, reading that writing or poem, or looking at this visual art. So to me, AI can never do that. Yes, it's something good you can put on your wall, but it has no energy.
It's interesting the way that it's like really just gone into areas of society now as well, that people are really adopting it. I think it's still possible to tell, even when things are good. I can tell a lot of the time it can't render the hands correctly. So you can usually tell, because it's got 5 fingers, 6 fingers, or whatever it is. So there's always something that's just I don't know what it is. There's just something that's just like not quite there. I don't know if it's like the focus of the eyes, or if you're looking at eyes, there's always like a little tell, but then not everyone can see. It's interesting. Not everyone can see that or recognize that. So I don't even know what that's about. I think also because I do a lot of graphic work, so I can, you can see when certain things are being used, and if you're not used to that, then you probably wouldn't notice, especially if you spend forever on TikTok watching people with filters on their faces. You're not going to know what's real or what's not. But
Sure.
it'd be interesting to see where AI melds with connected artists as well, as opposed to the ones that just go directly to the apps and the platforms and just tell it what to create. But then those that are still connected with the essence of themselves and are still bringing in their creativity to work in tandem with that as well. And I don't know, because I've not seen anyone who's like taken it that far yet. It's probably out there, and I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah,
because
I have not been able to. I've tried to see if like a portion, like if I want to, like you said, if I want a human being or whatever, or a dragon, let's say, can I get AI to give me that piece to bring it into my artwork? And even that portion, I have not been able to. No, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, it's
like I see a dragon, but I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look like a dragon. I mean, it looks really like a dragon, but it doesn't feel like a dragon.
Yeah.
Whereas if I have somebody, an actual human, draw the dragon for me, it's there is that feels like a dragon. When the AI does it, it's like, nah.
I'm really just trying to understand what it is anyway. Like at the core, what is it that's creating that thing? Obviously, like for me, I'm using it on the consumer end if I am. So what's the mechanism behind it that's creating all of that? That's my curiosity at the moment.
The energy, your energy, you're picking up. A part of you knows that's a machine creating it. The machine can never have that divine part in it.
But then I don't know if you've ever thought this or considered this, like not everyone will be able to tell. Like for instance, if you're born into the age of AI and all you ever see are AI generated images, AI generated content, then does that discernment go out? Do we as evolving beings, when we're not using that connection to our divine self, to our higher self, because we have something that's generating for us, do we lose that connection as the generations move through and we evolve or not evolve? I don't know the answers to that. It's just always something that I'm wondering. I think of just from something basic like the mobile phone. Like when I grew up before mobile phones and internet and personal computers and everything like that. So I remember having to memorize many numbers in my head in order to be able, and then having to walk down the road to find a phone box to then queue and call somebody. Whereas now I just about remember my own, simply because I've changed it. So my memory's stuck in the first one that I had. And I've had this new one for about 4 years, and I still pause just to kind of like check myself by not having to do something. Does it mean because I've lessened the cognitive load that it's given me more space for other things? Or does it mean that because I've lessened the cognitive load that I stop using that part of myself that I would do? I don't have any answers. I'm just kind of voicing questions that I'm like, well, where does it go with us? Like, where is this taking us? Are we going to be able to maintain our humanity and our connection in tandem with technology? Or do we, over time, because it doesn't seem like it's necessary, lose that? Those are the things that I'm like, where are we going with this? And can we make it good?
I don't think we ever lose the connection, though. Because that connection is a part of us that, again, that's the sort of that beam, that your heartbeat, whatever you want to call it, in there, it's always calling you home. It's like, this is not real. This is not real. So let's like say, even like in the Matrix world, there were people that they're recognizing, no, there's something wrong with this. And that's always going to be the case, no matter. There are people that are going to because of fear, they're going to tune it out and move into this so-called reality of it, whatever that reality looks like. And there are going to always be those people that are going to be connected and say, no, there's something different. There's something bigger. And, with AI and everything else, I think the reason all these tools and techniques and everything we have has come up because we are human. Again, part of that fear process that we've gone into. So there's this habit of doing, of fixing, of solving, that every morning as we're getting up, our brains are in that mode of doing, fixing, solving. And because of that, all these different things we have created these different things to solve problems, to fix things, and for us to be able to do things. But the reality is, again, when you bring those alignments together, you'll see there is nothing to fix. There is nothing to solve. There really even isn't anything about doing. Because doing says, like you don't say, I'm doing walking. Walking, when you want to walk from here to the door, you're just going to get up and go. There is no doing involved.
So tell me, share what's been birthed within your world. What are you creating at this moment in time, in your work, in your art, in any aspect of what you're doing?
Art, my art is whatever comes up. So the last piece was the cover of the book. And with clients, I'm always coming up with new ways of doing things for them. And I actually just combined, I had two different services, which now I combined them into one because it felt more with the flow of things, where before I was taking them through, you got to release certain amount of past trauma in order to do it. Come to do connecting with your body and getting your body to do it. Now I've come sort of meshed them together, where at the same time as you're releasing your trauma, you can also master your body. And once you connect and master your body, that's when you can, physically move better, feel better, get in the shape you want. It has nothing to do with diet, exercise, any of it. So that's something new. And, like I think you were talking before, it's suddenly this publishing has come about out of the blue, where I'm doing a multi-author book with a group of people I've invited into it. I'm excited. I came up with a publishing name for it, and everybody connected with the logo and the name. And now there's somebody else talking to me about me publishing her solo book, helping her. And it was interesting. The word she used was like, you have this activating energy. And with this publishing, that's what I see, is that you can activate the books. So other than that, we'll see what the universe has in store for me. I always shared in like past interviews that I always have a long-term vision. When and how that comes together, I don't know. But having my own center, sort of, that I'm helping people in different ways. So that's always out there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Where can people connect with you? How can they find out more about their work if they want to work with you or be part of your art?
My website, if they go to my website, which is my first name, last name.com, that has all my links to my social media and the books, if you want to get it. But books, you can even search my name on Amazon. All that will come up. The link to my artwork, if they want to purchase, is on my website as well. So everything under that AtousaRaissyan.com, all the information is in there. And please do reach out. Follow me on social media and DM if you just want to even say, hey, I saw you or I heard you on the show. It's always nice to just hear from people with whatever they like to share. So yeah, please, I encourage you to reach out and share however if you've listened to this, tell me what you thought.
Thank you so much, Atousa. I loved just like sharing and being in your world and your views on everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. It's been such a great conversation. It's like having morning coffee with someone. So it's so good. Great questions.
Thank you, Atousa, for sharing so beautifully on this episode, and thank you for listening. Again, a reminder, if you're listening to this prior to the 30th of November 2023, that there is still time if you wish to join my online webinar, 3 Steps to Vocal Confidence. If you want to find out more about me, you can do so on my website, carolmaywhittick.com. That's carolmaywhittick.com. You can also find me on social media, Casmic on Instagram, Carol May Whittick on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also in the show notes is a link to Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to Her Conversations. Each episode is an exploration of the things we encounter as we embark on our spiritual and awakening journey. If you haven't already listened, listen in, and also consider joining the mailing list for that podcast. Every Monday you will receive an email that will give you additional meditation, journaling and inspirational notes. And also, as an added bonus to join up, you will receive Embody Higher Energetic Resonance course, where you feel into your vision physically, emotionally and spiritually, and start to take action on your dreams. So until the next episode, have a great week. Speak soon. Bye.